How's that? Good?
You're sounding absolutely fantastic, Barry, and welcome all to a chapter of my life with Mr. Barry Silkman, football agent. How's things?
Yep, really good, thank you. And you?
Yeah, good. Before you were a football agent, you carved out a magnificent and colourful career in the game as a player, Silky by name and Silky by nature. How did you get into your role as an agent, Barry?
Believe it or not, through my late wife, who passed away in her 40s, it was really strange actually, because I finished playing football. My last job, if you like, in football full time, I was a player coach at Crewe Alexandra with Dario Gradi. And I finished that. I was waiting for somebody to give me a job, which never happened. Several years later, when I was absolutely a few years later, when I was absolutely potless, I had a player from Southend, one of my previous clubs, call me to tell me he was at Cambridge and could I help one of his players that was at Cambridge get a transfer. A lad called Danny O'Shea called me, and I said to him, Dan, I haven't watched a football match for over 4 years. I don't even know who is who anymore. So he said, well, just come and watch him. Anyway, I went and watched him play at Cambridge, a left back called Alan Kimball. And on that Saturday night, I was watching Match of the Day, and Wimbledon came. And I thought, when I'm watching, I thought, do you know what? The way that Alan Kimball plays would really suit Wimbledon. I had no idea who the manager of Wimbledon was. And after the game, they said, we're going to interview the manager of Wimbledon, Joe Kinnear. Yeah. And Joe was a very old, dear friend of mine, although he was older than me. He was a very, very good friend of mine from when we played. Well, when I was playing, he was just finishing his career. So I thought, you know what? This could be very interesting if I could contact him. During the interview, he actually said, I've lost my left back, Terry Phelan. He's left the club, and I'm now searching for a left back. And that was it. I got on the phone to him, told him about Alan Kimball. He went to watching the very, very last day of the season. And coincidence after coincidence after coincidence. It would take me an hour to tell you all the coincidences that happened, but they bought him. And I think I got about £2,500 out the deal, and I was potless at the time. And that £2,500 bought us a car. The car we had to let it roll downhill to start, otherwise it wouldn't start. So that was my first deal. And then my wife said to me, Silk, why don't you become an agent? I said, well, everybody's got agents. She said, well, Alan Kimball didn't have. And that was how it started.
How do you, because we're going to dip in and out, and I don't do anything by script. I just put little bullet points and things come into my head, and then I ask questions. How do you ordinarily recruit players, and how many football players have you got on your books at this present moment?
Well, all different. I recruit them all different ways. Yeah. Some I get recommended a player, so I'll go and watch him. Yep. A lot of the time, other agents contact me because I've got a lot of people that I'm close to, i.e. managers and chairmen and people like that. I get a lot of agents contact me and say, look, we've got a player here. He wants to get away from his club. He would love to go to Premier League, or he'd love to play here, there, everywhere. Can you have a look and see what you think? And if you want to come in partnership with me, then we'll do it. So I watch the player. If I like the player, and my biggest asset is probably my judgment of players. It's always been a big asset of mine from when I was a player. Terry Venables used to say to me, you're the best judge of a player I've ever met. So that has been my biggest asset. So I'll look at a player. If I don't think he's any good, I'll let it go. If I think he's good, I'll then start looking for what type of clubs suit the way he plays. And out of those clubs, what are looking for a player in his position.
Because again, something that comes out of fans and media is the fact that agents, they're just in it for the money. If Manchester City come in, they'd sell that player to Man City because they're going to get more money. I watched a clip about you earlier today. Absolutely 100% the opposite and exactly what you've just said. It's all about the player, identifying the player and finding the right fit for that player, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, I can only go how I am.
Yep.
And 99% of agents have never been players and never kicked the ball.
Yeah.
I can only go how I was when I was a player. When I was a player, if there were agents about them, which there wasn't, they just come into the game as I finished. I would have wanted an agent to help me get a club that suits the way I play.
Yep.
And obviously, the better he works for me, the more I recommend him to other players. The more players I recommend him to, the more players he gets and the more money he makes.
Yep.
Listen, there are agents out there that will try and push a player to a certain club because the finance is better. But you've got to remember, it's a club who owns a player, not the agent.
Yeah.
And if a club decides they're not going to sell to one club but will sell to another, the agent has no option but to get the best deal possible for his client in that club.
Yeah.
And you get some agents who are not great on football, but they're great on business. I think with me, I'm absolutely brilliant on football, and my business brain is good. It's not fantastic because a lot of agents will think about themselves as much as they think about the player.
Yeah.
But a lot of agents will think about the player first because they know that this is a long-term scenario and they could have a player for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. They could have him for 1 or 2 transfers or 2 new contracts. So, the media portray something how they want to portray it. The reality is that 90% of the time it's not true.
Yeah. Now, when you've got a player on your books, are you looking after his well-being day to day? And do agents get paid for just the transaction, the transfer, or do you get paid ordinarily by the player for looking after his well-being day to day, week to week, month to month?
I can only go personally. Yeah. I just get paid for the transaction.
Got ya.
Because I believe that a player is big enough and ugly enough to look after himself.
Yep.
Yeah. And number 2, what is the good of me giving someone advice on something that I'm not an expert in?
Yep.
I'm not an expert in financial money, in buying property, where he should put his money, where the best long-term gain is. I haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
I really haven't. My game is football. So what I'll do, I'll try and put him to the best club that suits him. And when we find that, get him the best deal possible. After that, he's on his own. Now, you do get some agents that look after the player's welfare. They look after their financial needs. I'm not an expert in that.
Yeah.
So what is the good of me trying to look after a player's financial needs when that's not my expertise?
Yeah.
So anything that I'm not really, really good at, I don't get involved. No one's ever going to turn around and say, Silky, you told me to do this, it never worked out, or you advised me with this. I really, on a personal level, I don't get involved in any of that whatsoever.
It's just football and transfers and football clubs. Again, another thing that you hear a lot is football clubs bemoaning the role of an agent. Yet it's football clubs often that get in touch with the agent to do a deal and get a player in. So they seem to want to have the cake and eat it, don't they? Then slag off the agent.
Well, I've got to say that it's the newspapers and the media that really talk about a club not liking agents.
Yeah.
I have never yet, I've been doing this since the 90s.
Yeah.
I have never heard a club turn around to me and say, we don't like agents. We don't want to use agents. We would never use an agent. I have never, ever heard it.
Yeah.
It's the media. It seems to be some kind of jealousy scenario where they think all these agents are getting millions of pounds. And it's not true. Yeah. It's like anything, isn't it? If you are an estate agent and you are a huge estate agent in the centre of London, you're going to be doing massive deals for properties, 30, 40, 50, 60 million pounds.
Yep.
And you're getting your 2.5%, and you're probably doing up to 10 a week.
Yep.
As a football agent, if you do 6 or 8 transactions a year, that's a lot.
Yep.
And your transactions that you do are what the clubs are working with you. They're asking you to do. They help you to ask, maybe get a player's transfer fee down. The number of times when 2 clubs have been negotiating with a player that I'm involved in, and they'll say to me, Silky, see if you can get this down. We know you've got a great you've got a great rapport, and you've got a great reputation with this other club. You get on really well with them. Can you see if they'll lower the transfer fee?
Yeah.
I mean, one particular player, I won't go into who it is because it's not fair. The club wanted 40 million for him and wouldn't budge. And they said to me, look, we know you get on great with the chief executive and you really like them. They really like you. Can you see if you can get some money off? And I got the player for 30, just over 32 million.
Yep.
That was almost 8 million save, which is huge. But no one sees that side of what you do. They don't want to see that side of what you do. And clubs are using agents a lot. And if you're the agent of the player, they're not, if they have got respect for the player and that player has you as an agent, they will discuss the deal with you. They will discuss maybe his transfer fee. They'll certainly discuss his wages, his bonuses, the length of contract, because the agent is saying this guy, the player, is saying this guy is my agent. And if the club are going to respect the player, they will deal with the agent. It's only the newspapers that come out with the stories. And I have to say that, and this is not, I'm not saying this because I am an agent, I'm saying it because it's true. 99 out of 100 stories I see going in the newspapers about agents is not true.
Yeah.
It's fabricated.
Again, another thing that you hear, money going out the game, especially with overseas players. But the way I look at it, if I'm a player, I want representation because I don't ordinarily trust football clubs. I want someone that's working for me in my transaction to get me the best deal. So I think all football players should have agents. Now, as you've alluded to earlier, you're getting paid. So if your cut is 10%, 20%, whatever cut agents take these days, if you're dealing with a player of £200 million, you're going to get a lot of money. I don't see anything wrong with that. It's all relative, isn't it?
I mean, mainly if you're working for a player, you can only get a maximum of 10% of his salary.
Yeah, got you.
That's it. Yeah, that's the maximum. Yeah, so if a player's on £50,000 a week, the maximum you can get is £5,000 a week. But a lot of clubs try and keep it down to 5 or 6%. Yeah. But one of the biggest things in this scenario, which everyone seems to have overlooked, let's just say we've got a player, as an example, on, I don't know, let's say 100 grand a week, which is what a lot of the big players get. Yeah. Which is £5 million a year.
Yep.
Where does that money go? To the player, yeah?
Yeah.
Does he put the money back into football or does it go out of football?
It goes out of football.
Right. The next step is you get a transfer fee to a club, yeah? Every single year, the owner of that club will take a dividend. I've never seen one that doesn't take a dividend, yeah? Where's that money go? In football or out of it?
Out of football.
Right. So what is the problem with the money that goes to agents? They tell you that £60 million last year or 70 million went to agents. Yeah. Well, about 500, 600, 700 million went to players, and it all went out of football.
Yeah.
What do they think they do? Players get their salary and go back to the club and say, do you know what? I don't want this money out of football. I don't want to buy any. I don't want to buy any property. My wife has said to me, I can give everything back to you, so I'll play for nothing and just give me like £5,000 a week so I can live. It's nonsense.
It's crazy. It's stupid.
All money that is paid, whether it be salaries, all the people in the football clubs, you've got dozens and dozens and dozens of people that work in a football club. Let's just take a coach in a football club, a manager. The big managers, I'm talking about the huge ones, they're on 150, 200, 250 grand a week, which is £12.5 million a year. What do you think they do with their salary? Give it back.
It's just bizarre.
So you always say, the money that goes to agents goes out the game. All money that's paid goes out the game.
Yeah.
All of it. Every bit of salary to a manager, to a coach, even to the secretaries. What do they think they do? Give a secretary 40 grand a year, a typist, and she gives the money back to the club again. It's very strange. They've got this thing
Mm.
a bee in their bonnet about agents because they can't pick on the manager because they'll need that manager to do press conferences, to talk to him, to open up about the club. They can't pick on a player because they need the player. They can't pick on an owner because if the owner bans that media, they've got a problem.
Yep.
So who's left?
Yep.
Who's left? There's only an agent left. There's no
Yeah.
one else left. So they pick on the agent.
Another ridiculous scenario is capping agents. Agents should get capped. Why? Why?
Can't happen.
Why?
Can't happen.
You know, in a capitalist society and a game that's awash with money thrown at them from TV companies, why the hell should an agent's fees be capped? I
Well,
find it all
can't happen.
laughable. It's
Yeah,
just
it
laughable.
cannot. Yeah, it cannot happen. I don't know where it's come up from, where
No, I
FIFA have thought this thing. It's like saying transfer fees are capped. How
Yeah.
can you cap a transfer fee?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it's quite interesting actually because I went to court quite a few years ago, took a football club to court, and they relied on the FA rules. And I said to my barrister at the time, we're not going on FA rules, we're going on English law.
Mm.
Now, I absolutely murdered the football club. In fact, the judge, in his summing up, he said the FA need to rewrite their whole rule book because I've read it and over 90% of their rules are illegal. They fly in the face of English statutes and they go against European law. And anybody that brings the FA to court will win because it's a private club.
Yep.
They've got private rules. Now, the clubs, they all adhere. It's like this scenario we've got now with you're only allowed to spend a certain money. You've got fair play rules. Yeah. Now, if I've got, let's just say, 40 or 50 million pound in my bank account, why can't I go and put 20 million into buying a house? Why can't I put 20 million into my business? How can it be capped? It's my money.
Yeah.
So if it's the Man City scenario now, where Man City have at the moment been thrown out of Europe. Do you know what chance that's got of staying like that? Zero.
I was going to say about nil.
Zero. It's got zero chance because the FA and FIFA know that if Man City take them to High Court, they can't lose. You can't tell somebody how much they can spend on their business. You can't have a private rule. You know, this guy's sitting there with 25 billion pound in his bank account. What are they going to say? We're really sorry, you can only use 1 billion of it or 750 million of it because of a fair play rule. Say, but it's my money. I can do what I like with my money. In any business in the world, doesn't matter what the business is, you can do what you like with your money. Now, with the fair play, all the clubs have gone along with it for peace. Yeah. All of a sudden now, Man City are being thrown out of Europe. The chances of that standing are absolutely zero. What will happen is Man City will take them to a tribunal. The tribunal will say we cannot afford for this to go to court because if it goes to court, a judge will smash out the fair play. And that is the end of this fair play rule. So a tribunal will say to Man City, look, we'll put you back in Europe, but are you happy just to give us £5 million fine, just like a token gesture? They'll say fine, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. You can't tell someone what you can spend, and it's the same as an agent. You know, in show business, which in effect is what football has become, hasn't it?
It's entertainment.
When I was a kid, everybody wanted to know about David Cassidy, the Osmonds. You know, it's like
David Essex.
Everyone wanted to know. What's happened now is football in a way has taken over from what pop music. Yeah, and in show business, even now, with actors, singers, pop groups, the normal amount an agent will earn is 20%.
Yeah.
Now, some work for 15%, but 9 out of 10 they get 20%. Like in football, you're capped. You cannot get more than 10%. Now, if an agent decides one day, do you know what? I'm not standing for this. I'm taking it to court. That 10% rule will disappear out the window because it will be the only rule, the only business in the whole of the world where you're capped to what you can earn.
Yeah.
No different to transfer windows. You name me one business where you can only operate 3 months a year.
It's stupid.
Find me one.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So if football clubs decide one day, do you know what? We are taking the FA and FIFA to court because we want to transfer players all the year round, they will win. But they go along with it because no one wants to upset the apple cart. But the bottom line is 99% of the FA rules and FIFA rules are actually illegal. They're okay for a private club, but in reality, it's illegal. You know, if it says in the FA rules you can go out and shoot someone and kill them, does that mean you can go out and shoot them and kill them because it's in the FA rules? It's crazy.
Football makes the rules up as it goes along.
It's exactly what it does.
Transfer windows must be an absolute nightmare for you guys. Why they brought it in, I don't know, but I'd love to get a big brick and smash them, and let's have transfers throughout the whole of the season, like we used to when you used to play football.
You used to go till the last Saturday in March, and that is exactly how it should be. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare for clubs as well because in January there are very, very, very few players available for transfer. Very few. And the ones that are, clubs get held to ransom. I mean, a great example is West Ham. They bought a player from the Championship, from Hull City, from Browne. They give over £20 million for a Championship player who's a winger. Well, you know, with respect to the player, I'm not saying he's good, bad, fantastic, or indifferent. In the summer, they would have got £8 million for him. But in the winter, there's no one available. You know, and when would a club who are in desperate trouble of relegation, when would they go out and buy a player in the Championship? Never. But you have no option because you can't get anybody. There's no one available. You know, people say to me, you know, this club, they should have strengthened. Spurs should have strengthened. Arsenal should have strengthened. Chelsea should have strengthened. How do you strengthen? Because nobody's going to sell top players from their club in January. No one. Doesn't exist. So, it is a nightmare. Then when you get to the summer, it's like a lunatic asylum. What you're in fact doing, let's say a normal person works for 49 weeks in a year. You're working for 12 weeks, because that's what the transfer window is. You've got to put as much work into 12 weeks as what everyone else is putting into 49. And I sleep, if I'm lucky, other than one night a week, I get 5 hours sleep maximum, because you're dealing all over the world. You got players phoning you up, what's happening, agents from America, Brazil, everywhere, what's going on, what's happened with the player. And it does drive you mad because they're all on an egg timer, aren't they? It's if we don't do the deal by that time, we've had it. Then you've got clubs saying, well, we want 40 million for our player. But if we haven't sold him by the 28th of August, we only want 25 million. Well, it's too late then on the 28th of August. Every one of you want to sell the players to, they've already bought their player. You know, a number of clubs that they ask for so much money that they get stuck with players that they don't really want. It's a player's worth what somebody will pay. You know, I live in a home. I can value this home at what I want to value it at. 1 million, 2 million, 22 million. If I want to sell it, it's worth what somebody will pay for it. And football's no different. And it's why a lot of deals fall through. because clubs who've got players have one valuation. Somebody who's buying a player has a completely different valuation, and the deal doesn't.
I liked the idea that you had with clubs not charging as much in the transfer fee, but when that player's played a certain amount of games, you get that and more because that player has progressed.
That's what should
Common
happen with
sense, innit?
lower players.
Yeah, common
With,
sense.
when you're buying top players, it's a different scenario.
Yep.
But when you're taking a little bit of a gamble, and a club, let's say, is asking for 15 million,
Yeah.
So look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you 8 million. But when he starts 20 games, I'll give you another 3. When he starts 50 games, I'll give you another 3. Now you've got 14. When he starts 70 games, I'll give you another 3. And if he starts 100 games, I'll give you another 3. So if he's playing here for 3 years and he's starting in my first team, you will end up with 20 million, not the 15 you're asking for.
Exactly.
But initially, I can only give you 8 because I'm taking a massive gamble.
Yep.
And that's how it should be with players who you are taking a gamble on. Listen, at the end of the day, every player's a gamble because it might not work. But when you're buying higher level of players who are playing in bigger clubs and they've played Champions League football, international football, the gamble is much less than if you're buying a player, let's say, from a championship club or a club in Turkey who the football is bang average.
Yeah.
So when you're taking a gamble, the other club who is selling him should say, well, you know what? We really believe in this player, so we'll go along with it. When they won't go along with it, for me, that means they don't really believe in the player. They just want to get as much as they can now because they feel the player's gonna foul.
Yeah. Brexit, will that change transfers?
Yes. When it will change it, I don't know, because everybody becomes non-European because we're not in Europe.
Yeah.
So right now you have a situation where players with EU passports can just come and play. Anybody who hasn't got an EU passport, what I call a foreigner, they have to pass the criteria. There's certain criteria. There has to be a certain transfer fee paid. There has to be a certain salary paid. So they have to meet a criteria. It goes on a points basis. If you get 3 points, you've got a chance of getting a work permit. 4 points more or less guarantees you the work permit. So everything goes now on a point system. When Brexit comes in, everybody will be a stranger.
Yeah.
They'll all be foreigners and strangers. No one's going to be under an EEC. It's not going to make a blind bit of difference whether they come from France or Nigeria. So something obviously has got to be sorted out. My opinion, and it's only an opinion, I think what they'll do is they'll have a maximum of, let's say, 15 players who are not English, maybe 18 players, but there will be a limit as to the players to each squad. That's what I think will happen. Now, again, by doing that is not legal because you're denying someone the right to work. Yes, so it's a very difficult scenario because if someone challenges it, it's dead in the water. But I think clubs would be happy with that situation. What you are going to get, if that does happen, you're going to get more Brazilian players here, South American, Argentinians, Chile, Mexico, wherever. You're going to get Ghanaians, Nigerians. You're going to get a lot more African players and a lot more South American players than what you've got now because they won't have to meet any criteria. Now, if they give a criteria and the clubs go along with it, and not only they give a criteria, they then put a maximum amount of players in each club, you're then going to get a lot of clubs that are going to have to play 4, 5 or 6 English players. Now, with respect to clubs now, if you look at, let's say, Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea, Leicester, Man United, Everton, if you maximise their foreign players and the rest of the players have got to be English, how long do you think Sky Television will keep handing the money over? They'll pull the plug. And the problem you've got is this is where it all has to be careful. If they pull the plug, and clubs have still got players with 2, 3, 4 years left on huge money, those clubs will go bankrupt.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very fine line, and I think there's going to have to be quite a few meetings between FIFA, the FA, and football clubs to determine how to do this. I don't think it's so cut and dried as just going and getting a job as a painter and decorator, as an example,
Yeah.
or a computer expert or whatever. It's going to be quite interesting to see what happens in football, but for sure it's going to have to change.
Craziest transaction that you've got involved in, Baz?
Oh my God. In what way would you call crazy?
In any
I
way?
can tell you, right, I can tell you what it is actually.
Yeah.
When I first started, I had no money, literally no money. We did a few deals and I was living in a place that I wouldn't even want to describe it. It was dreadful. And I was married and we had a daughter who had severe brain damage.
No.
She passed away in her sleep when she was 5 years old. And we had moved from what I would call a complete dump into a semi-detached house in Waltham Abbey. And when we moved, the day we moved, the 21st of June, our daughter died that night. So it was the most horrendous time. And I couldn't get my head around doing a deal. And I then got myself back into action again. My wife really stuck a pin up my backside and said, listen, we got to get yourself back into action. And diversing slightly from the story, after our daughter died, 3 months later, we went to Mombasa, to Kenya, and we took some of Danielle, which is our first daughter's clothes, and we found a village and we handed these clothes out. And we come home and we decided we were going to pack every single thing that Danielle had, go back to this village and give all the clothes out and the toys and pens and crayons and whatever we had. We went out and bought loads of stuff and sweets, and we went back. We took 3 suitcases and 2 hand luggage out. The hand luggage was ours and the suitcases were full up with stuff. And this was 6 months after Danielle had passed away. And while we were there, my wife fell pregnant, and our daughter is actually called Kenya. So we named her after the country, Kenya.
Yeah.
When we come home, my wife said to me, Silk, we haven't got a lot of money, and we need to do a deal somewhere along the line here. And I had a player called Alistair Edwards, and he was an Australian player playing in Malaysia. And someone recommended him to me. And he came over, and he went on trial to Millwall. And he did no better than okay. And at that time, my living expenses for the year were about £15,000. And we had about £9,000 or £10,000 in the bank. And my wife said to me, Silk, we're in trouble here. We can only live for like 9 months if you don't do another deal. Yeah. So this guy, Alistair Edwards, came over and he trained, and they said he did okay. And they were going to play him in a game at Swindon. And funny enough, there's a very, very big agency now called Stella.
Yes,
and
I
it's
know
owned
it, yeah.
by Jonathan Barnett and David Manasseh.
Yeah, Grealish has
And
done that, yeah.
that's right. And now Jonathan Barnett got his license on the same day that this game was taking place in Swindon. Swindon Reserves versus Millwall Reserves. And Mick McCarthy was the manager of Millwall, and Ian Evans, who was the assistant manager. They went to see how Alistair Edwards was going to play. They were going to decide whether to give him a contract or not. And I was introduced to Jonathan Barnett, who told me he got the license that day. It was freezing cold. It was absolutely pouring down with rain and sleet. And Alistair Edwards came on with tights on underneath his shorts. And he told me afterwards he'd never been in this weather before. He was born in Scotland, but he was raised in Australia. They went to Malaysia, where it was like, even the winter was like 22 degrees. Well, he completely froze in this game. I swear to God, he didn't run 200 yards in the whole game. He just couldn't move. So after the game, Mick McCarthy said to me, Silk, listen, I'm going to let Alistair go. Yeah, we're not going to keep him. It was a Tuesday. So the game was finished. Alistair was told he was leaving. And then they said to him, well, look, do you want to stay and play in a game next week? So he decided to stay and play the following week Then the following morning, he decided, no, I'm not staying. Yeah. And I phoned Mick and I said to Mick, look, he's not going to come back. Mick said, that's fine. I've called him, wished him all the best. And he said to me, I'm going to go up to Scotland. I'm going to see my family, who I've not seen since I was a little boy. Don't even remember them. And then my wife and I and little baby, had a little baby. We're going to go back to Malaysia. So I wished him all the best. And off he went. That was on the Wednesday morning. On the Friday, I get a phone call from Mick McCarthy. He said, Silky, have you spoke to Alistair? So I said, no, why? He said, got a big problem. I said, what? He said, well, Jamie Morley, the striker's got injured in training this morning. Dave Mitchell, our other striker's got injured in training. And our reserve players got injured in training. I said, you having a laugh, Mick? He said, I swear to you. He said, Silky, I swear, all three players are injured. I haven't even got a 17-year-old I can play tomorrow. I said, where are you playing? He said, we're playing Sheffield United. He said, do me a favour. Ask Alistair if he'll play, and we'll give him £500 expenses. And if we win, we'll give him another £500. He said, please, please see where he is. So I said, well, I know he's going to Scotland. I said, let me phone him, see if he wants to play. So I called him. I swear to God this is true. I said, Alistair, where are you? He said, I'm in Sheffield. I said, you having a laugh? So he said, no, why? I said, what are you doing there? He said, well, you stopped there on the way up to Scotland. We're going to go shopping today, and then we'll stay till tomorrow, and then we're going to drive on up to Scotland. I said to him, how do you fancy playing for Millwall's first team tomorrow? He said, why? And I explained the injuries. And he went to me, nah. He said, to be honest, he said, I don't really want to play. I said, Alistair, you come all the way from Malaysia for a trial at Millwall. You've played in the worst game possible, which is Swindon's reserves. Just have a think about it. This will be the only time you ever get a chance to play in English football. You've already signed a contract, so it's signed. What it's signed is a month-to-month thing, you see. It's already got another week to run, so you can play. Have a think about it. He said, okay, I'll speak to my wife. Within 15 minutes, he called me back. He said, Silky, let me know what hotel they're in. I'll play.
Good lad.
I called Mick McCarthy. I said, Mick, he's going to play. So he plays against Sheffield United. The score was 0-0. Mick McCarthy phoned me up after. He said, Silky, he played really well. We couldn't believe it. We've asked him to stay and play against Arsenal when the League Cup came on Tuesday night. He stayed, played against Arsenal, played fantastic. They said, we're going to give him a contract. They paid me £18,000, which for me saw my wife and I through for another year without having a problem.
Yeah.
And he was crap after that. he was so bad, you can't believe it. They ended up paying up his contract and letting him go, and he went back to Malaysia. The only 2 games he was any good was those 2 games. And I said to my wife, God must be looking down on us because we were in trouble for money, and the worst player that I've ever had has got us out of trouble. And he was such a lovely guy as well. He was lovely, 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 lovely man. And his wife was lovely. That was the most bizarre deal I've ever been involved in.
Youngest player that you've ever had on your books? Because there was a wonderful story and I'd like you to tell it about Jack Wilshere.
Okay, I never had Jack on my books, so let me tell you what happened.
Yeah.
I got a phone call one day, and the guy introduced himself as Jack Wilshere's father. And he said, I'd like to come over and meet you with my wife. Or he actually said, I'd like to meet you with my wife and my son. My son's 15 years old. He's playing for Arsenal. They've just offered him a contract. And can we have a meet? So I invited him over to my house. So Jack Wilshere came over with his mum and dad. And we sat down and we spoke. And the gist of the conversation, I said to him, look, I don't think your son needs an agent. You've already been offered a deal. And you've already been offered a professional deal to follow 1 year as a youth development. Why do you need an agent? You've already agreed the money. No one's going to be able to change the deal. I said, so in my opinion, I think you should be his agent at the moment, to his father. He said to me, do you know what? We have seen 13 different agents. You are the last agent on our list, and you are the only one that spoke about football. Every single agent spoke about finance, about what they can do, and if he gets in the first team, how they can change it, how they can get a new contract, how they can start looking at sponsorship deals. You're the only person that spoke about football. So I said, because I can only come from a football point of view. I said, you got to remember, I played all my life. I was a coach and an assistant manager for over 4 years at Leyton Orient and at Crewe. So my background's football. My knowledge is football. And from a football point of view, I don't think your son right now needs an agent. In 2 or 3 years' time, if he's doing well, yes, because then he's going to need to sign a new contract or somebody's going to come in to buy him. At that time, I would love you to consider me as your son's agent. And they hugged me and kissed me, shook my hand, said, we're going to take everything on board. They went out, player did well, but I never heard from them again. They never ever come back to me, which is not a problem. Yeah. But they didn't ever come back to me, you know? So that was my experience with, if you like, the youngest player that had ever contacted me.
Lucas Neal is another fantastic story as well.
What a bad name you've thrown at me there.
I was watching.
If you was in front of me, I'll probably attack you. I'll tell you the story with Lucas
such
Neal.
A great story.
Oh,
incredible how he disrespected you, though.
I've got to tell you the story with Lucas. I got a phone call from a guy called Tom Samani, who later on in life actually became the Australian women's manager. But at this time when he contacted me, he was working in the Australian Institute of Sport. And he said, Silky, we've got 2 players here, young players. He actually said 3. So we've got 3 players, but one of them he discarded, as he said he thought he was a little bit lightweight and he wants to wait another year before he sent him over. And a guy called Archie Blue stepped in, brought that other player over, who had an amazing career. His name was Harry Kuehl. So I missed out on Harry Kuehl because Tom Samani decided at that time he was too small, too lightweight. So anyway, I brought over a lad called Andrew McDermott, who went on to stay here, and I brought over Lucas Neal. And I spoke with the people at Queen's Park Rangers. Ray Wilkins, God rest his soul, was the manager. Billy Bonds was working there. Johnny Hollins was working there. Both really good friends of mine. Lovely, lovely people. And a guy called Chris Gieler was the chief scout. And I took both of them to QPR. They spent a few weeks there. And obviously I kept in touch, how they doing. And they said, look, Andrew McDermott's doing really, really well. We really like him. We're not too sure about Lucas Neal, though. And said, we got a game at Stevenage. And I've been only once to watch them in training. And I really like both of them. Really like them. So I went to the game at Stevenage, where Andrew McDermott started the game, played 90 minutes. And they brought Lucas Neal on 30 minutes from the end. I thought, personally, he was an absolute certainty to make it. So when I met them all afterwards, and I was with a guy called Clive Berlin, who at that time was very, very friendly with Richard Thompson, who owned Queen's Park Rangers. He was the one that actually introduced me into the club. And I knew Ray Wilkins and Billy Bonds and Johnny Hollins anyway from, when they were players. Ray Wilkins I used to play against. The other 2 were a lot older than me, but Ray I used to play against. So I went and spoke to them after the game. We were on the side of the pitch. And Billy Bonds looked at me, he said to me, he said, we love Andrew McDermott. He said, I don't think Lucas Neal's got a chance. Johnny Hollins said exactly the same thing. Chris Gieler said exactly the same thing. Ray Wilkins was slightly different. He said, I love Andrew McDermott. He said, Lucas Neal, I'm not sure. He said, I would like, if I could, to have him for another week or 2. He said, nobody else is convinced about him. No one fancies him, but I'm not too sure. So I looked at these other guys. I'll never forget this. And I said, lucky that you don't do what I do for a living. And Chris Keeler said, why? I said, because Lucas Neal is the biggest certainty you have ever seen to make it. I said, see all your players out there that play today. I guarantee you one day Lucas Neal will be worth more than all of them players. So we did a deal for Andrew McDermott, and Lucas Neal flew back to Australia. Well, they both flew back, but obviously Andrew McDermott was coming back again a couple of days later. On the Monday, this was on the weekend, beginning of, I think it was on the Friday they left, Friday night flight. On the Monday night, I got a phone call. Very, very, very late on Monday night. It must have been about midnight. And I looked at the phone and it was an Australian number. And it was Lucas Neal's father. And he said, Silky, I've got a big, big problem here. He said, what? He said, Lucas Neal has been caught smoking marijuana today. And they're throwing him out of the Institute of Sport. He's got to leave here on Friday. And when he leaves, he's finished. Nobody is going to touch him. They're not going to go near him. So I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, I know this is almost impossible. Is there any way you can bring him back over to England? Now, at the time, I had a great relationship with Millwall. The manager, I had a terrific relationship with Mick McCarthy. Ian Evans, who was the assistant manager, I played with him at Crystal Palace. And the owner, lovely dear man called Reg Burr, who's dead now. Yeah. I had a great relationship with him. So I phoned them and I said to them, look, how much do you trust me? Now, at the time, I had taken a player there for very little money and got big money for him. And I'd sold a few players for them. I'd earned them a lot of money. Yeah. So I said, how much do you trust me? So they said, yeah, 100%. Why? I said, right, I've got a player. I just want you to sign him. Okay. This is the deal. Give him a 3.5-year contract. £350. I'll never forget the deal. £350 a week for the rest of this season. Then 375, 400 and 425, and give him £50 appearance money and give him a flat to live in. And they said, look, not only will do that, we'll also give him a house mother, which is someone who goes 6 days a week to clean and cook. Yep. So only 1 day a week he's on his own. Yeah. So they said to me, what we'll do, I don't know how they come up with this figure. They said, we'll give you as an agent's fee £12,500. But if he does well and we give him a new deal, you will get proper money. Yeah? Yeah. So I said, okay. I phoned the father up. I said, right, got him a contract at Millwall. Well, the father was in raptures on the phone. I think that even though he wasn't gay, he'd have probably made love to me if he was here. Well, he'd have tried to. I wouldn't have let him. Yeah? So Lucas flew over. I met him at the airport. I took him to Millwall and everything went wonderful. He went into a hotel for a couple of nights, then straight into a flat. When he gets to the flat's got hardly any furniture. It was a joke. So I said to my wife, listen, let's go and get Lucas some furniture. So we bought him some furniture. We bought him knives, forks, spoons, bed linen. Like, you can't believe what we bought. We spent, now remember, I got £12,500 for bringing him there, and I have to pay tax on that. We spent £11,000 on furniture for him so that he was really comfortable. Okay. So I explained this to the owner at Millwall, and he said, don't worry, you'll get that back and a lot more if he does well. So I said to them, I'll never forget this. I said to them, he will be in your first team in 8 weeks. I guarantee you he'll be in the first team. So his very, very first game was against Leyton Orient youth team at Leyton Orient. Now, I had a meeting at the time in a hotel, which then was called the Swallow Hotel in Waltham Abbey. Yeah. And I was going to get, for most of the second half, I was going to get to Leyton Orient's training ground, which was 15 minutes from Waltham Abbey. When my meeting finished, I was just walking out, and Patsy Holland, who then was the manager of Leyton Orient, and Tommy Cunningham, who I played with at Leyton Orient, he owns Harlow Town Football Club now. He was the assistant at Leyton Orient. They walked into the hotel. So they said, oh, where you going, Silk? Come and have a coffee. I said, I can't. I'm going to your game at your youth team. They said, oh, we've just been there. We watched the first 35 minutes. Said the Leighton Orient number 8 was killing us. He was running from one end of the pitch to the other. He'd scored 2 goals and made one. Said, don't know who he is, but he was killing us. So now I'm driving to the training ground thinking, please let number 8 be Lucas Neal. Please let it be Lucas Neal. Anyway, I arrived at the training ground and the ground was in a dip. And I remember walking down this dip, and the first player I looked at, he was running away from me, was number 8. And as I got nearer, I thought, oh my God, it's Lucas. And the youth team manager then, I remember his name was Tom Wally. And as I walked up to him, he said, Silk, he's unbelievable, this kid. He's too good to play for me. And the next game he played in the reserves, I think he played something like 3 or 4 games in the reserves. And within 6 weeks, he was in the first team. And he did fantastic. Started off fantastic. The owner phoned me, Reg Burr. He said, you're about to make yourself a nice bit of money because next Friday, I want you to come to the club. I'm going to speak with Lucas. We're going to give him a new contract and he's going to get at least treble what he's earning now. So I said, that's fantastic, Reg. 2 days before on the Wednesday, Reg Burr called me. He said to me, got a problem. So I said, what? He said, well, Lucas has come in and he said he don't want you anymore as his agent. He's going to use his dad. So I said, this is a joke, Reg, yeah? So he said, no. He said, he's going to use his dad. So I phoned him up, Lucas. I won't say the exact words I said. But I said, what's going on here? Oh, Silky, I know you've done a lot for me. And I know without you, I wouldn't have a career. And I know I'll probably be walking the streets earning a living. But my dad wants to do my next contract. So I said, Lucas, with respect, mate, I got 12.5 grand when you went there. I spent just over 11,000 on your furniture. And so I'm about 5 grand down at the minute. And you're telling me that your dad's going to do the contract. He said, yeah, hung up on me. So quite a few years later, I was at Craven Cottage. And funny enough, I was standing with Ray Wilkins. There was Ray Wilkins, Gordon Strachan, and a few other managers, ex-players. And we went to watch Australia versus, I think it was New Zealand, at Craven Cottage at Fulham. And we were standing in the boardroom afterwards, the big lounge after. And someone come walking towards me. And as I looked, it was Lucas Neal's father. And he was with a group of people. And as he walked towards me, because everyone I was with didn't know who it was, he put his hand out to shake my hand. And I looked at him. I said to him, you know the best thing you can do? Just put your hand out, turn around, and walk out of this building. Take those people with you and tell your son if he comes up here and approaches me, I will throw him straight out the window. See, because what you did was a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. I said, I'm not bigging myself up, but your son would never, ever have been a footballer if it weren't through me. Do you know what he said to me? Yeah, I know. And he walked out.
Oh my.
And the next time I saw Lucas Neal was at Blackburn because he had a fantastic career, and I saw him at Blackburn. Mm-hmm. And I took Robbie Savage to Blackburn. Remember Robbie Savage?
I remember him
Mad
very
Robbie.
well, yeah.
I did Robbie's deal at Blackburn for him. And when I was there, Lucas Neal come up to me. And I went to him, Lucas, you don't want to be walking up to me, my friend, because you still want to be playing football on Saturday. And he turned around and walked away. I mean, that was, I would say, from a player's point of view, one of the worst things I've ever had happen in my life. Yeah. I've never come across a player like that ever, not ever. And I remember my wife saying that everything will come back one day to haunt him. Everything. He said, because what we did, and he knew the situation I was in. He knew that a short time before we'd lost our daughter, he knew that things had not been good for my wife and I. And what we did for him at that time was just beyond what an agent would do. I mean, what agent goes out and spends more money than they earn just to furnish a player's flat? Who does that?
No one.
And then you get it kicked up in your face. I mean, that for me, he was, of all the players I've met some lovely, lovely, lovely people. And I've met some that are not so lovely. Of all the players I've met, he was the worst player as a person.
Yeah.
as an individual that I've ever come across in my life. I would describe him as being vile.
Yeah.
And I can't say that about any other player. I've got a lot of time for a lot of players. I've had people like Mark Schwartz, who was one of my players. Lovely, lovely, lovely man. George Boateng, Jeremy, all those players back then. Lovely, lovely, lovely people. Him, got no time for.
Adebayor and Demba Ba as well, you had.
Oh, God, yeah. I wish they were around today.
What a player, Adebayor. Well, both of them, weren't they?
Both fantastic
Cracking.
players, yeah.
But I remember watching this piece on YouTube today, and you were touting Adebayor round to a number of football clubs. None of them wanted to take him, did they?
Listen,
Incredible.
the best story I ever had, ever. I went to watch a player many years ago. And again, it was back in the mid-90s. It was just after our daughter had passed away. And I went and watched the player. And this player was good. And when I say good, I mean really, really, really good. Like, really good. And he was a free transfer. His contract had ended. He could walk away on a free transfer. And he came over to England. And I went to visit probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 clubs. I could not get arrested. And the one thing about me, what I'm bad at, I don't pretend to be good at. But what I've always been fantastic at, always, is judgment of players.
Yep.
I mean, Terry Venables, right back from when I played with him at Crystal Palace, he tells people Silky is the best judge of a player I've ever come across in my life. And I begged people to take this player. I begged him. He stayed with us for a week. He's the best cook I've ever known. He wouldn't let my wife cook. He cooked all week. He was the most spectacular cook. He was coming up with these things that I've never heard of before. Yeah, it was unbelievable. Now, the funny thing is he went off, and within 2 years, he'd become the best player in the world. His name was George Ware. But I have to tell you, it was a toss-up whether he was a better footballer or a better cook. He was absolutely the most magnificent cook and a lovely, lovely, lovely guy. I mean, I remember also many years ago, I was approached by an ex-player. I had a player, Robbie Slater. Lovely, lovely guy. He played at Blackburn. He played at West Ham. He's an Australian player. And we spoke about different players. And I had a player fall into my hands that I went to watch, and he was sensational. And at the time, Newcastle were the club. Kevin Keegan was the manager. They had people like Aspria playing there, Les Ferdinand. Yeah, this was a real team. And I thought this player would be magnificent there. So I told Kevin. Now, I don't know who Kevin sent to watch the player. In my opinion, and it's only my opinion, this player was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I only watched him for 45 minutes. He was brilliant. Kevin sent someone to watch him. Now, at that time, let's say the first division, let's call it the Championship, because what it was the Premier League, then the first division. But let's, for the sake of words, let's call it the Championship. At that time, Wolves were bottom of the Championship. And I remember Kevin sent someone to watch him, and Kevin called me, said, Silky, we've been to watch the player. And in our opinion, and it's not his opinion, it's just whoever went to watch him. In our opinion, the player is not good enough to play for Wolves. So I said, Kev, who did you send? Stevie Wonder. I'll never forget this. He said, well, it's an opinion. I said, well, I have to tell you, you are so far out, it's scary. So what I did, I called a friend of mine whose brother-in-law was in charge of a huge club abroad. And I said, they've got to go and watch this player. He was cheap. He was £1.2 million. I said, you've got to go and watch him. And at that time, 5 million was a big price, 6 million. So at 1.2, even then he was cheap. I said, they've got to go and watch him because he's fantastic. So he spoke to his brother-in-law and he come back, a guy called Maurizio, come back to me. He said to me, Silky, we know the player. My brother-in-law knows the player because he was working Maurizio for the youth team, scout for the youth team. He said, we know the player. He knows you're a great judge, so we're going to go and watch him again. And they bought the player. And obviously I didn't get paid, yeah? But what they did do, because there was no transfer windows then, for 4 years running after that, they gave my wife and I free holiday in Italy for 1 month. Any hotels we wanted to go, they picked up the bill for 4 years. The player's name was Zinedine Zidane. And whoever Kevin went to centre watch him said he couldn't play for Wolves.
Oh, did seriously Wolves turn down Zinedine Zidane?
No, not Wolves, Newcastle.
Oh, Newcastle turned him down.
Newcastle, yeah, Kevin Keegan at Newcastle, yeah. Because Kevin, obviously it wasn't Kevin because Kevin didn't see him, but Kevin sent somebody to watch him, and they just said he couldn't play.
He couldn't play for
he's
Wolves.
Not good enough to play for Wolves, who were bottom of the championship.
Yes.
And the guy I spoke to was Maurizio Peverali, and his brother-in-law was Roberto Bettiga. And at the time, Roberto Bettiga was running Juventus.
What a player he was as well, Bettiga.
Yeah, and they ended up selling him for, I think it was about 46 million they sold him for. But he weren't good enough to play for Wolves.
One of the greatest goals I saw in the 1978 World Cup finals when Casio and Bettiga teamed up, and I think they beat Argentina 1-0 that night.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, what a player he was, Roberto Bettiga. Lovely man as well. Very, very, very nice man. Lovely man. So, listen, we can be on here all night telling stories about players that didn't happen and did happen. And it's an incredible... The football's all about opinions. That's what it is. The problem is a lot of people's opinion is not good judgment. That's the problem. But they believe it is. And that is the problem.
Baz,
you know...
absolutely loved this hour, and as you say, we could go on and on and on talking football. I messaged you earlier today, you really should write a book and put all these down on paper so people can buy them books and put a few quid in your pocket as well.
I'll probably give it all to charity, knowing me. And I have to say something that is quite interesting. A friend of mine, David Craig, works for Sky. He drove me mad for years. He wanted to be my ghostwriter.
Yeah.
And I said talking to someone about it today, funny enough. I had a meeting with an agent that I do a lot of work with up in London today. And we were talking about it. He said to me, why don't you write a book? I said, I don't think it'd be a book. It'd probably be a series of novels. I said, I don't think it'd be able to get them all in one book. And he said, Silky, I would do it. He said, because also apart from football, I've been very heavily involved in the years with music. Because my first job when I left school, I was actually a singer, not a footballer.
Okay.
Because my mum was a singer, and that's what I did. I was a singer. I didn't become a footballer until I was turned 20. I was a singer. So my background early on was football and singing. And then I got a chance to become a footballer. And I said to my dad, I think I play football better than I sing. So I became a professional footballer.
I did listen to Smile that you recorded with your daughter.
With my daughter, Kenia. Yeah, that was for her mum when her mum had cancer, yeah.
And I have to say, you have got a sweet voice.
I'm not bad, I'm not bad. I'm not Nat King Cole, but I'm all right.
And finally, you do manage Shalimar as well these days, don't you? What's your favourite Shalimar song?
I'm gonna make this a night to remember. Make this a night to remember. That's their biggest song. In fact, Howard Hewitt, who is the lead singer, this is a funny thing, actually. In England, Shalimar are still big. In America, they've never really been that big.
Right.
And they don't do any work in America. In fact, Carolyn Griffey, the girl singer, and Howard Hewitt, the lead vocalist, are based in America. Jeffrey Daniels, who's the one who took Michael Jackson to do what they now call the moonwalk. It was really called the backslide, was what it was called. Jeffrey lives in Nigeria, and they don't work in America. They only come here to work. Now, in America, Howard Hewitt is quite busy as a solo artist. Now, Howard is coming over on the 4th of March. He's got 2 gigs over here as a solo artist, but obviously he will be doing quite a few Shalimar songs. Yeah. But it's the first time he would appear there as a solo artist. But in May, Shalimar are coming back for a small tour. They'll be here from May right through to the beginning of July.
And I'm certain that they will be appearing once again at the Jam House, the jewel in Birmingham's Crown Inn.
I'm not sure at the minute.
Yeah.
To be honest, I haven't looked at where they're booked, I've not really looked at, because I've got a guy Craig, he does all that. He does the promoting and he finds all the venues. He's really good. He's a lovely guy as well. He does all that side of it. So I'm not really sure where they are when they come over, but they haven't got a massive tour. I think it's about 5 or 6 gigs. It's not their normal 15 or 16. It's about 5, 6 or 7 gigs. But I love their music. It's strange actually, because they're now great personal friends. Howard loves coming and staying at the house, except he's afraid of one of my dogs now. The dog keeps going for him. I've got an 85-kilo dog, and then he keeps going for Howard. So Howard's decided he don't want to come and stay here anymore. Doesn't go for anyone else, only Howard. I said, it probably don't like your voice, mate, you know. But I love their music. So apart from being lovely people, and they are real lovely people, I love their music.
Yeah, that I was a big fan in the 80s of Shalimar, as well as Imagination. They were me too.
Lee John, lovely, very good friend of mine, Lee, really good.
Yeah, and Archie Carmichael, who helps Lee as well. Great management, great lad.
Yeah.
What an absolute artist, and as I say, love Lee John to bits as well. What a top man, mate. We're going to have to make our move right now and play out with Shalimar. Will you join me again for the My 70s, and we'll talk about your footballing career, Barry?
Anytime you want. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Absolutely loved it. For now, Baz, thanks very much, and we will speak soon. Cheers, pal. Appreciate it. Bye. Bye.